Christ! Oh, Lord!
Hey everybody, welcome back to Mask of the Slasher. We are on our second installment of Joshtober! Yay! In case you missed it, which I hope you didn't, but in case you missed it, this is Josh's birthday month. So he got to choose the movies for this month that we're covering.
Oh, yeah.
Josh is going to be 55.
I'm not going to be 55. Jeez Louise.
You're going to get an AARP card.
Oh my gosh, I don't think so.
Oh, well. Anyway, so Josh decided that this week we should discuss the classic,
Yeah.
The Wicker Man.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Not the shitty remake with Nicolas Cage.
Sorry, I love you, Nicolas Cage, but that movie's a no for me, dog.
Yeah. Bad news.
Bad news all around.
You ready?
Yes. Let's
All
spread
right.
the good news of The Wicker Man. Forget about that bad news.
Yeah. Bad news. So, when did you first see this?
Gosh, I've been trying to think about that, and I'm not sure. I was older, I know that. Mm-hmm. I didn't see it when I was a kid. I was older. So maybe not even till like college age, really.
Yeah.
When I was kind of exploring more weird movies from like the 70s and stuff, stuff
Yeah.
like that. I don't recall ever seeing it as a kid.
Yeah.
I remember reading about it in like maybe Fangoria or something like that and being super intrigued by it at some point, but not actually seeing it until later on.
Well, and I didn't see it until I met you.
That's crazy.
Surprising.
Yeah,
I know.
Crazy.
But at the same time, I do judge a book by its cover.
Right.
Or a DVD by its cover. And the artwork always was off-putting to me. First, it looks hot.
Yeah.
We know how I feel about hot movies.
Yeah.
It looked hot, and I wasn't into full core back then,
Yeah.
and just all of those things.
Yeah.
So, and I was influenced by the people I was around.
Sure.
So all my early influence stuff was extreme horror. And now I'm coming back.
Gotcha.
Bringing it on back now.
Yeah.
To full core, which is a lot more of a slow burn.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, obviously, roots in the 70s, a lot of horror was slow burn in the 70s.
Yeah.
And, of course, Wicker Man is the OG granddaddy of full horror,
It is.
So.
It is. It is what everybody copies.
Yeah.
So, and for the subject matter of Midsummer, everybody that has to beat that dead horse.
Right.
Yes, Midsummer definitely borrowed from this movie, the idea.
For sure.
But they're perfect in their own ways.
Yeah.
Midsummer, although the ideas are the same, I really don't see how you can compare them.
Right. Well, because Wicker Man it's a mystery, has a mystery element to it.
Yeah.
Which Midsummer doesn't have.
Exactly.
But it's also a horror movie still at the same time. So.
Yeah. Well, and the director, Robin Hardy, we watched some of the extras on the Blu-ray. There's extras on here. You should watch them. He was saying that this was based off of essentially a game. And you can see it now after watching the movie that, it's like a cat and mouse situation.
Yeah.
And, I mean, even, it's kind of quoted at the end about this is the end of the game and blah,
Right.
blah, blah. So I think that part of it is not as obvious if you're not paying attention to that idea of it. I think just the pure annoyance of the police officer.
Right.
That's enough right there to just throw your attention off of anything else. 'Cause
Right.
He's annoying. Anyway, so some facts.
Yeah.
This movie was released in December of 1973 in the UK. And then we later got it in August 7th, 1974 in the United States. So it has been re-released a couple times, but it was restored back in 2013 and then re-released yet again. So we got the nice cleaned up version,
Right.
which is good. I mean, I like a little gritty.
Oh, yeah, and I still think that even the Blu-ray still has a little grit to it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they only cleaned it up so far. Maybe that's the best they could do. Who knows? But
Yeah.
I still think it retains some of the grit at least. The movie kicks off with Officer Howie. He flies in a really weird-looking plane.
Yeah.
Lands in the water outside of Summer Isle. He is investigating a tip they received of a missing little girl.
Yes. Summer Isle, by the way, is in Scotland.
Right, yes.
Okay.
And right from the very start, the townspeople are acting very suspicious.
Yeah.
Acting very weird.
Yeah, just hanging out at the dock, like, who's this foolio?
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like walking into the bar and everybody looks at you.
Yes, which later happens to him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that part happens later
Yeah.
on. So anyway, he's investigating this missing girl, and nobody really wants to help him. Some people say, oh, she didn't exist. You know, they never heard of her, this and that. You know, even the woman that's supposed to be her mom, oh no, this is, you know, says this other girl is my daughter. You know, I don't have a daughter like who you're talking about.
Well, but the funny thing about this is that he said, I received an anonymous letter saying that they're looking for this girl.
Right.
So if everybody's acting like they don't know who the hell this is, who did the letter come from?
Right.
Still a mystery.
Still a mystery, that's right.
Yes.
So anyway, it goes on. He finally, you know, after doing a little bit of investigating, he goes to get a room for the night at this inn. At which part he's introduced to the innkeeper's daughter, and they sing a rather crude song about her.
Yes.
And he's appalled because it should be mentioned that he is a hardcore Christian, very prudish.
Yeah.
So as it goes on, he's super appalled by all the things that they're doing. There's people just fornicating.
Yeah, out in the field.
Out in the fields.
I'm like, it's gotta be cold.
You know, things of that nature. There's women running around naked, jumping through fire, all these different kinds of things. And this is just so atrocious to him, you know, because they don't, you know, the church is, Christian church there is just left in ruins. Nobody cares about it, you know, that type of thing. And he's just mortified by all that's going on in this island.
Yes. And the thing with the Christian church portion of this is that he asks about it, you know, like, where is your ministers or whoever, you know, where, and they're just like, we don't have anything to do with that.
Yeah.
And what it went back to is that Lord Summerisle's father, he found this island, decided to, I don't know, make roots there.
Yeah.
And basically brought in his own pagan culture.
Yep.
And essentially kicked out any of the Christianity off the island. And so they have all adopted this way of living.
Yeah.
And so now this is how they roll.
Yeah.
And it's really, it's for the harvest.
Yes.
That's mainly what this is about.
Yeah.
And you will hear songs about it.
Yes.
Because the harvest, which would normally be in May, despite this being filmed in October through December.
Oof.
Just think about naked scenes in the fields.
Very cold.
But it's basically, you know, it's like it's supposed to be a sacrifice to whoever, pagan gods, whatever.
Yeah.
So they can have some good fruit and shit.
Right. Should be mentioned at this point that Lord Summerisle is played by the late great Christopher Lee, who most people will know for having played Dracula in a ton of movies. I think he played Dracula at least 7 or 8 times in different movies. And this was a very different role for him because at that point most people knew him for these kind of big gothic horror movies that Hammer was doing, like the Dracula movies, and they did some Frankenstein and things like that. So this was a very different role for him, but I think he does a great job because he's Christopher Lee and he could read out of the phone book and it'd be good.
Well, and he wanted to do this because he was tired of being typecasted.
Right.
He wanted to kind of explore other things, and so it's been said that despite their tight budget and everything, he even would do like production work without being paid because he really wanted this movie to be done. As
we're going along here, the story starts to unravel. You know, Officer Howie just gets more and more suspicious of what's going on here as things go on. Finally, he figures out that this girl is alive somewhere, but does not know where. You know, eventually he kind of infiltrates their festivities. You know, he's going to leave the island, but then he can't because they've messed with his plane, so it won't start. So from there, he infiltrates their festivities, comes to find out that, you know, they had been sacrificing girls when necessary to get the harvest going. You know, if they had a bad year, they'd have to offer a sacrifice. Come to find out that this year he is the intended sacrifice.
Yes, and it's because he's a virgin.
Yes.
And Lord Summerisle even says, you know, we're even giving you what you want. You're going to be sacrificed as a martyr. Yeah. And which is, well, calls it like he sees it, you know. But there's some questions I have about this.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Okay. So ultimately, yes, he goes into the Wicker Man. He gets set on fire.
Alive,
and yada, yada, yada. Everybody knows that.
Right.
It's still terrifying.
Oh, yeah, horrible. Horrible way to die.
Yeah. Well, especially, and you can hear the screaming animals in there. There was one side of this where the director said that no animals were harmed. But then some of the other people have said, yes, there were.
Oh.
And back then
they didn't have animal rights.
And it was Scotland.
Yeah,
Who knows what's going on there? You know,
exactly.
They probably ate them.
Yeah, hopefully.
Made some chicken
hopefully
nuggets.
They made some use out of them.
Yeah. So, but yeah, there's some questions about this movie because we were discussing this. Is that Josh made a funny comment during Willow, who is the innkeeper's daughter. She has a very seducing. Well. She's basically like the town hoe.
Yeah.
She's the town pump.
Yeah.
And so people will bring their teenage sons to her to...
So we deflower them, basically.
Yes, deflower them. And so Josh had said, what this would be the one movie where it would have benefited him to go and sleep with her because then he would no longer be a virgin.
Yeah, that's my question. Like, why did she try to seduce him? Because if she had, wouldn't it have messed up their whole plans to sacrifice him as a virgin?
Exactly.
I never did understand that.
And she was very nice to him from the beginning. Yeah. She's the only one that was, she never really talked about the missing girl situation.
Right.
But everything else, she, tried to make him comfortable no matter what it was. So it makes me wonder, was she the one that wrote the letter? Maybe she was tired of being the town pump. Right. Maybe she was like, I'm exhausted, and making these weird dances, hitting walls and stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because, you're right. She is nice to him the whole time, unlike the rest of the town pretty much. Yeah. Is pretty cold towards him. She's very nice to him and then tries to seduce him. And then at that point, almost makes you wonder, well, was she trying to mess things up?
Yeah.
But then later, at the end, she's with them. She's with.
Well, but does she have a choice?
Yeah, that's true too.
Because she could just be outed at that point. And so with that, then I wondered, okay, he goes outside and he sees the people humping in the field. Wait, weird. Yeah. Okay, folks, it's weird. And I said, I wonder if these people are like just trying to hump the virginity out of anybody they can so they don't get sacrificed.
Oh, that's a good call.
Because it's obviously a townsperson normally that would be sacrificed. And towards the end when they're doing the thing with the swords. Yeah. And that's supposed to be basically choosing the sacrifice. Right. And they're just all relieved when it doesn't happen to them. So it's almost like that actually does happen. Yeah. But I think, because you had said, you said, I can't talk. You said that you thought that the letter was written and he was drawn to them purposely. Right. But how do they know him?
Well, yeah, that's a great question, because how would they just randomly know, oh, there's this cop that's a virgin and he's hardcore Christian and we can sacrifice him,
Yeah, I saw him on Google.
How would they know about that? Like, because he says he's kind of a dick and a prude, and like, was his legend known throughout the land of Scotland?
This asshole at church. Man, he's the 40-year-old virgin. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out is, how did all of that occur? Right. Because it just, some of these things don't make sense to me. So what I think happened, this is my theory at least, is that he did get the letter. I think he got it from Willow. And I think that he went there with good intentions, obviously, but he's such a dick that, people were like, ugh. Yeah. Because when he first got there with his little airplane and he kept asking for a dinghy, which I couldn't stop laughing internally at because the word dinghy's funny. Right. If you don't know what a dinghy is, it's a tiny boat. Yeah. But anyway, he kept asking for his dinghy. Right. And and these people were like, you can't come here. This is a private island. So it's almost like nobody else knew that this was going to happen. Because why wouldn't they encourage it? Yeah.
So you think maybe the letter was legit, and when Summer Isle got a hold of this guy, he realized he lucked out. Yes. He can sacrifice this dude.
Well, and then he put himself into a shit situation where he decided to knock out the innkeeper, take his ugly costume, and try to put himself into their little parade that they had. But he didn't know what he was doing. He didn't know how to act. Yeah. And didn't know the role of the jester or whatever he was. So I think that's when it was like, oh, okay. Because, the whole thing's a fucking spoiler, so I don't care anymore. Yeah. But at the end, he finally sees the girl, and he was like, there she is, getting ready to be sacrificed. He runs up to the rock. She's like, yes, oh, I'm so scared, oh, blah, blah, blah. And they hide in the little cove thingy or whatever. And then she just fishes him right back out to the, the rock, the sacrificing area. Yeah. Whatever they call it. They have a name for it.
Yeah, I don't remember.
A place where people die. Yeah. And a cliff. There we go. That's a good word, cliff. Yeah. Anyway, and then it's like, oh, just kidding. Fooled you, and so I think it was, like you said, like Lord Summer Isle's like, oh, we don't have to get rid of one of the girls. Because there is a point in this movie where a woman is crying at a gravestone. Yeah. So I don't think everybody, and I don't know who that was. I didn't see it close enough. I don't know if it was Willow. Right. Because most of the women in there look blonde and, white. Yeah. So it's hard to tell really, but... Right. So obviously not everybody's on board with this. Right. So there is that. Yeah. So you have to wonder if I think there was truth behind this. I don't think it's as deceiving as we want it to be. But what was said by the director is that there's a lot of little hidden things that you won't see the first time around and you just keep noticing stuff. So that's when I noticed the woman with the gravestone. Right. And I noticed the old lady in the casket when I was looking at pictures yesterday. I was like, oh, that's her hand. that they make a candle out of. Because I was like, why is she just missing a hand?
Right.
You know, that doesn't make sense. So it's hers.
Right.
And how do you make a candle out of a person's hand? I don't know. Also, what did that candle do?
Well, it's called a hand of glory.
Okay, thank you.
And it's, I believe it, I don't remember because it's been a long time since I looked up any of this stuff, but I believe it's meant to, like, it paralyzes you or puts you to sleep or something. I can't remember.
Well, yeah, he was taking a nap with the door open.
Yeah, weird.
And and they were like, "Whoa, okay, let's just let him sleep."
Yeah.
So that once again was Willow and the innkeeper trying to keep him away from the festivities. And I mean, everybody kept warning him, "Don't come. You're not going to like this Mayday shit. It's going to be bad," you know. And then lo and behold, you know, he's like, "Nope, I'm stupid and I'm going to get up and take this costume of this man who was trying to save you ultimately."
Yeah.
Because even he was somewhat nice despite being very crude.
Yeah.
And so he caused his own.
Yeah, zealotry was his own undoing, really.
Yeah. So I think it's a lot more cut and dry than we want it to be necessarily, because you would want it to have a lot darker side to it and everything. But yeah, he caused his own shit.
Yeah.
You know, and so in that sense, this is one of those movies once again where you're supposed to, you know, cheer on the police officer, the guy who's trying to save the little girl. That's what you're thinking in the beginning of this, and why are these townspeople being so deceiving and lying and all this stuff? And then he becomes a dick.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's like tearing apart people's houses and just totally destroying their whole world.
Yeah.
That they're just trying to get some damn fruits and vegetables that aren't canned.
Right.
You know, and
even though he's ultimately trying to do the right thing, it's still hard to root for him because he's such a zealot and such a jerk to these people, you know what I mean?
It makes him hard to love.
It's kind of a metaphor for you know, Christianity just kind of coming in and being this bull in a china shop, you know, and stomping all over everybody else's beliefs.
Yeah, and that's why they worked so hard to get that away from them, and he's just forcing it right back in. And he doesn't understand why this. I mean, how dare anybody not believe what he believes?
Right.
Sounds familiar. And so I was fine with him dying.
Yeah, ultimately, yes. A horrible death, but at the end of the day, you're kind of like... And what I love about that scene is just how, like, the singing and how joyous everybody is at this horrible thing that they're doing, you know, because they think they're doing the right thing, you know?
So the music is a big part of this. In those interviews, one of the people that is interviewed, which I thought was surprising because I thought it was going to be a really old interview, but was Eli Roth.
Yeah.
And although he can be kind of annoying in my opinion sometimes, he made good points that, you know, this movie is great on its own, but that music makes it eerier because you're trying to be happy for the situation, and these festivities never look bad from the outside. Yeah. You know, they just look like, oh, everything's fine. But from the first Mayday pole dance with the boys, where they're talking about, you know, there's a man in a tree, and then there's a man on top of a woman, and these little boys are singing this song, doing the Mayday pole dance, and I'm just like, that's a little weird and gross. Yeah. And then the second thing is the girls that are jumping over the fire are also singing their own little song. Right. Though they are actually girls. They are like preteen or teenagers. They're underage. Yeah. Because it's commented in that little scene afterwards between, you know, the two, saying, you know, oh, don't you find this great? And it's like, no, I'm not a perv, you know. Yeah. So you have that, and then all the rest of the little singing things. And Willow's song, though, I have to say, out of all of them, that and the barkeeper song, or the innkeeper song, I should say, both of those songs, I think, stand out the most. The corn rigs and barley rigs, if you're paying attention to it, it kind of sets you up for what's happening. Right. But you have to pay attention to it, and it just sounds like a corny, just a bad song. It's just living bad. But the other two songs, it's just like, they're crude, but... all of it tells a story if you listen. Right. You really
have to pay attention to the lyrics.
And it's very easy to.
It's not just there to, you know, it's not just music there to be there to kind of be like, oh, they're celebrating, or oh, they're having a good old time at the bar or whatever. The lyrics have meaning that ties in directly to the plot of the movie. Absolutely.
And you know, in the 70s, we've discussed this in a past episode, which I'll put the link up, about inappropriate music during certain things that was just a little more upbeat than you would anticipate, and which is strange to me still, but like Last House on the Left, that music, it's like circus music to me. Every time I listen to it, I'm like, what, why did they think this was appropriate? Right. And that just continues to happen. So I think with this movie, it's kind of on the same line of that, where it's upbeat, but it has a sinister upbeat. It's not just innocent, upbeat, shitty music that they put in a movie, like Last House on the Left.
Exactly.
So I think once you pay attention to it, you get the story. This is a lot where Midsummer and this are alike, to where these stories are being interwoven and told to you, but you have to pay attention to all the details.
Yes.
You have to get past, just the shit you just see right in front of your face. You have to really look at every detail, and that's what the director was saying, is that, there's all these little interwoven things that if you don't, and you need to watch it several times to get them all.
Yeah, and that's what's amazing about this movie, I think, is that it's so bright and celebratory, and joyous as far as the tones of the music and everything. Or like some of the songs are really tender sounding, you know, but it's still just so sinister, underneath of it all. It's just such the sinister underlying quality to it. I think that's an incredible thing that they did.
Well, and I think the sinister portion of it kind of ties back to, I think it's trying to make you think everything's okay, but it is sinister because it's paganism, which is what the Christian church wanted you to think to begin with.
Right.
So it's pulling all of these things together, and it's just a constant back and forth with all of this. Like, it's deceiving that, okay, well, the pagans see it as being great. Christians, nope. Yeah. Nope. Just, it's not what we want. So that's, Right. And that's how that music is too. It's the same thing. What is it, a juxtaposition of the two, you know? So I think that that's why it's so important when they decided to release this music. There's a whole extra thing on the Blu-ray just about the music. Yeah. Between how the movie was made, how the music was put together, as a whole, that's what makes this movie good. Yeah. I think, definitely if the music didn't have lyric base and wasn't the actual musicians playing in the movie, which I thought was cool because, very cool. Yeah. You've seen like somebody fake playing. Yeah, and you can always tell. Yeah. But there's more emotion with it when they're playing it in this. Yeah. So I think a combination of all of that is what makes it so good. And it is like I said in the beginning, this is a slow burn. Oh yeah, for sure. And some people have a very hard time getting past that. And I think it's the same people have a hard time getting past Midsummer. Sure. I think that wraps it up for this one. I think we've covered it pretty thoroughly. Yeah. If you guys have not seen this movie, I cannot recommend it enough. If you're into folk horror, this right here is the roots of folk horror. Yeah. And, I think this movie is not only influential on other films, it's also influential on music, because if you think about bands like Death in June or Sol Invictus, surely they were influenced by the soundtrack to this movie. I've never read an interview that said so, but I would have to believe that they were. And so, it's just it just got this rich history and this rich level of influence to it, and the performances are amazing. The soundtrack is just so weird and cool. It's just everything about this movie is just so eerie and sinister, but at the same time bright and joyous. It's just such a crazy movie. I just love it so much. It's hard to put into words. Well, and I think that this movie, if you are kind of like on the fence, hemming and hawing over folk horror, and you've never seen this movie, you need to start here. This is the foundation of it, and then everything's built on top of it. And I think because Wicker Man is it's not like it's in depth, but not that in depth like Midsummer is. Right. So it's a little easier to follow, and as far as getting the basis of it, obviously, like we've said, you have to watch it several times to get all the little Easter eggs and stuff that are in there. But I think even just watching it one time, then going into other folk horror, you understand where it kind of came from, and you'll have a little bit more of an appreciation of it. Right. And I also think that reading the history of paganism and that kind of thing, to have an understanding of this, that the Wicker Man and Midsummer and not the Lord of Misrule, but they really did a lot of research and made sure it went somewhere with it. That they had a real story. Yes. Not the Lord of Misrule. Not so much. Nope, that one's. But I think that this would help. But you have to be in a patient mood. Yeah. You have to be open-minded too. Very open-minded. When you first hear that music, you're going to be like, "What the heck am I getting ready to watch here? What is this?" Yeah. If you're not ready for it or not willing to open your mind to it. Yeah, open your mind, man. It's just a kind of a soothing movie in a way, which is really gross. And a lot of people even question whether or not this is horror. So as far as when you watch it and if you start to question whether or not it's folk horror, many people have verified that yes, in fact it is. Yeah. And it's the music that made it folk horror. And otherwise it would have just been folk.
Yeah.
Folk mystery. I don't know. The music is what put it over the edge.
Yeah.
And so pay attention to all those things. In Midsummer, I don't feel like there was a lot of music involved. Right. There was music,
yes,
obviously, because there's ritual music.
Right.
But it wasn't like this.
Not to that degree.
It's not the storytelling. Midsummer used paintings.
Well, yeah, and Eli Roth even said this movie could almost be classified as a musical, which I thought was funny.
Yeah, it definitely could be. And I was thinking about it last night, even before we watched that, and I was like, what if they were to make a musical out of this? I mean, they're making it out of other dumb shit like Back to the Future.
Right.
Why? But this would be an interesting one. I mean, the music's already there. Yeah. You don't have,
it could be done.
It could be done. Somebody do it, please.
Give us what we want, the Wicker Man musical.
Yes. With Nathan Lane.
That's right. Yeah. Amazing.
Anyway, but if you have watched this movie, we would love to know what you think of it, because I think it's a love it or hate it situation.
I think so. Yeah.
But I think older horror fans, we understand where it comes from and why it's so important, and it's harder for the younger horror fans to get into this kind of stuff, because you're just, given instant satisfaction with movies are put out these days. So I think that's why so many people struggle with Midsummer, is that it's not that.
Right.
So try to, have an old people mind when watching it, and, just give yourself the time.
Yeah.
And don't go to the Nicolas Cage one. It's not worth the time or effort.
No. I watched it once and I'm good. Never again.
Well, and I even read today that the director and anybody else involved in the movie has they're just like, nope, that's a piece of shit.
What were they thinking?
And sometimes just well enough needs to be left alone. So anyway, I think that's it for this one.
Yeah.
Of course, we're going to continue. We've got 2 more episodes of Joshtober, and we're gonna keep going.
We are. Got some good stuff coming up, folks.
Yeah.
So stay tuned.
All right, and I will include the links to Spotify for the soundtrack, because yes, it's in Spotify, and that's what makes it fun for us to play on road trips.
That's right.
So anyway, we'll see you next time. Bye.